Hello and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be giving my thoughts and review on Dreamworks' latest, The Wild Robot. There's a lot of hype surrounding this movie and a lot of expectations going in. And is it all worth it? Is the movie great? Let's find out. Let's jump into my review. Now, The Wild Robot is a movie that was not at all on my radar until we started getting some promotional materials for it, some early buzz on it, all that kind of stuff. And those movies that you just have no idea about leading into the years, subsequent films, I think are always some of the most exciting and interesting when a movie can come out of nowhere and blow you away like the way The Wild Robot can. So before I jump into my review, let me know your thoughts on the film in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you thought of it, what rating you would give it as well. So kicking things off, let's talk about the animation, because the animation is one of the first things that gripped me when I first started seeing promotional materials and a trailer for this one. It is a very unique animation style. It almost looks painted in many different ways, and it has this very organic feel to it in the way that it animates not only the scenes and the settings that the movie takes place in, but the characters as well, and many of the different animals and the creatures throughout. There's this tangibility to the way each one is animated, that it is not done in the traditional CGI way where you can see how beautiful it looks, but with that enhancement through the painted style of it, each of the textures of the animals really feels unique in the way that it was executed, and really enhances not only each and every one of the characters, but the world and the living breathingness that it has as well. This is definitely a movie that is built on the shoulders of what came before in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which I still haven't had a chance to see, but I've seen trailers and stuff for it and really like the animation style for that one, as well as The Bad Guys, which was, I think, a pretty underrated Dreamworks film from a few years ago that I really enjoyed, especially for its animation style. And if Dreamworks keeps going in the direction we're seeing from those films and The Wild Robot, I'm really excited for what their future holds. Next, moving into the story and the film's pacing. I mentioned pacing because this movie drops us right in. We were immediately introduced to the main character of Roz, the robot that we get to follow throughout this movie. She is a robot that is designed to help humans and is stranded on this forest island full of just wildlife, animals, and critters. Through some events that take place, she takes on the responsibility of a little hatchling and raising it to help get it to the point where it can be self-sufficient and survive on its own. And through that, she learns many lessons in parenthood, responsibility, all that kind of stuff, and really gains a new sense of purpose for herself, which we'll talk about when we get into the themes. But she is aided by the help of Fink, a crafty little fox, and the two form a bit of a friendship as they work together to help raise this gosling that they name Bright Bill. This story is very fast moving. Like I said, it drops you right in and just pushes right through a lot of the introductory stuff. It sets everything up really well. You get all of the beats that you need to feel emotionally invested in the characters and each of their journeys and the growth and development that they're going to go throughout. And there was many points in the film where I was like, okay, we might be like, moving into the kind of wrapping this storyline up, and maybe this next piece will be in like a sequel or something. And they just keep on going with things. So I really appreciated how well they structured everything. They packed a lot of different aspects of the time that these characters spend together into one film that I didn't expect to happen. So I really appreciated not only the fast-pacedness of the movie, but the diligence that it took in having all of those elements of the story that it needed to be effective, but execute it in such a way that it never feels like anything is dragged out or missing. All of it is really well structured and really well paced. Next, moving into the characters and the performances. I mentioned Roz and Fink and Bright Bill. They are the main characters for this one. Roz is voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, who is one of the top actors working today, I think, especially in her voice character work. She does a fantastic job as the role of Roz. Being a robot, there is a technical nature to her voice that sounds robotic in many ways, but it is still so human. You can still get the humanity in her performance at the same time. There's a lot of depth to the growth of her character, and I feel like you can really feel that conveyed through the voice performance as well. Aside from her companion, we also have Aside from her as a companion, we have Fink, the crafty little fox that is sent in the beginning, gives her some trouble, but the two eventually form a friendship after not too long and work together to raise Brightbill. Fink is voiced by Pedro Pascal, who I think did a really great job. He really carries that, like I said, the crafty kind of nature of the fox. You're never quite sure what he's going to do next because of that nature that he has. And he even comes in with a lot of background that we don't know a lot about, but he's this type of personality that you can tell he's been hurt by a lot of different people, whether it is family or not even people, just other animals. He's been hurt by many, and he carries quite a burden from those things. So I think the friendship that the two form in Fink and Roz really does a lot for his character as well as Roz's character. The two of them, whenever they're together, the dynamic is really fun. The chemistry is really well done at the same time. They both get along really great as characters. And then we also have Brightbill, the gosling that is taken in under the wing, so to speak, of Roz and Fink, that they are seeking to just raise so that he can survive and be able to migrate at the end of the season. So it's very simple in the setup of, events take place that the two of them take on this young gosling to help raise, but there's so much depth and emotional investment that gets added along the way. Brightbill is performed by Kit Connor, which I'm not really familiar with. He's done a number of projects from what I saw when I looked him up, but I'm not too familiar with his work, but I did enjoy his performance in this one. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done because we follow so much of what is his life. As I mentioned, we start as a gosling and we go into his adolescence as he's moving into adulthood, and all of that takes place over several months as goslings age at a faster rate than humans do. So there's a lot of transitional nature. There's a lot of transition with his character that I think is really well done through the portrayal of all of these different emotions and feelings that this character's having throughout the film. Not only do we have a great main cast, but there's a really strong supporting cast as well. A number of actors that I didn't even realize were ones that popped up throughout, whether it was through a cameo or just a side supporting character role. Until I looked them up, we have Catherine O'Hara shows up for a while as a main possum mother, which is a really entertaining character to have around. And then we also have Bill Nye, who is another goose and kind of a mentor figure for Brightbill. And then we also have Ving Rhames and Mark Hamill that show up as well. There's many other characters that show up as well, but those were some of the most notable, kind of high profile name supporting actors. That was really fun that they actually showed up in this one and gave a really good performance, even as a supporting role character. Next, moving into the music. This is one of my favorite aspects of the film. If you know me, you know film score is one of my favorite aspects of filmmaking, and this score was done by Chris Bowers, which I'm not too familiar with his work. When I was looking up his previous work on Spotify, I noticed one of the Marvel shows, as well as a couple of other films that I'd seen, but the work previously had never stood out to me too much, where this is definitely one of the best scores I've heard this year, and it will definitely be on my top 10 list or top 5, whatever top list I do for film scores at the end of the year roundup. I thought the music was beautiful for this one. It has this very playful nature to a lot of it, as we're dealing with kind of the adolescence and just the childlike wonder that a lot of the characters have as they're learning about the world around them and beginning to grow and develop in it and find their place. So I really liked that playful nature to it, but it also had a heavy emotional weight to it as well for some of those more impactful, meaningful, and serious scenes of the movie. From the very early on moments of this movie, the music stood out to me, and it just got better and better as the film progressed. We also get a couple of songs by artist Maren Morris, which I'm not familiar with. I looked her up. She's massive. She's got, millions of monthly listeners on Spotify, but I hadn't heard her before. But the songs that are featured from her in this movie are some of the most emotional and impactful scenes, and I think they're truly enhanced by the great music that she produced and is utilized in this one. Some of the moments where I cried multiple times in this movie were during scenes when her music was playing, and I think that had a heavy impact on my emotional movement from the movie. And on that, this movie does a really good job balancing the more family-friendly aspects with some of the more mature themes throughout this one. There's a couple of moments that happen throughout this movie of like, oh dang, like I thought this was a kid's movie. Like there's some more serious, impactful moments. It was like, a really good balance. It almost felt like something of the more mature Pixar movies we've gotten lately, like Soul and Elemental, and even Onward in some kinds of ways. So I really appreciated that aspect of it as well. And along with those themes I mentioned earlier, we get a lot with parenthood. I think the Roz arc with, and even Fink as well, I would say, their kind of parenthood arc and what they learn and grow through, as Roz is someone who has this programming. She's very analytical and follows her programming for, based off of what she's built for and designed for, but she learns that all of that programming really hasn't prepared her for this task that she's going to take on, and she has to improvise a lot, and she has to learn and study in order to excel at the things that she wants to do to complete those tasks. And a lot of that really resonated with me as a somewhat new parent of, I have a 2.5-year-old now, and I really appreciated the themes and focuses on the parenthood angle with this movie. And as I mentioned, with some of the more emotionally resonating scenes in this movie that made me tear up and cry, those were some of those moments and those themes that they really focused on. Also with friendship, as I mentioned, Roz and Fink's relationship becoming this kind of friendship throughout the movie, as well as a number of the other animals and creatures throughout the film and the formed friendships we get throughout. All of that was really powerful, really effective, really well done, that I enjoyed the different dynamics of the different types of relationship based on the personalities of the animals, but getting to see all of the different perspectives on that, all through that filter of a friendship, I really appreciate it. And then lastly, thematically, the sense of purpose. This goes along hand in hand, I think, with the parenthood angle with Roz and also Fink's character. When we first meet Roz, she has kind of lost this sense of purpose because her programming hasn't prepared for her for many of the things she's encountering. She's not sure what to do now. Like, she could send out a signal and call for her company to come pick her up and get reprogrammed and stuff, but instead she chooses to seek a new purpose for herself. She takes on this challenge, and I really appreciated all of that with it, because there are so many challenging things in life, not only within parenthood but just life in general, where people struggle a lot with a sense of purpose. And I think this movie really explores those themes in a really interesting and powerful way that leaves a lot to be considered and thought on, and ways you might want to apply those to your own life. So those are my thoughts and my review of the movie The Wild Robot. This is easily one of the best movie experiences I've had this year. This is one of the best animated movies I've seen in a while. This is, I think, only the second movie this year now I'm going to be giving a perfect 5 out of 5. This was a thoroughly enjoyable experience, and one that I cannot wait to revisit at some point once this movie hits physical release as well. I highly recommend it. It's a great movie for families. It has a lot that the kids will enjoy as well as the parents, so it's a perfect mix of the two. Do not forget to join me in the comments down below with your thoughts and your review on The Wild Robot. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this video. I will see you in the next one.